Hi, I'm Rachel here with my cat Leia, and I'm doing my second Meg Wolitzer backlist update. It's a lucrative time to be thinking about Meg Wolitzer. Far from the author who only produced work in yesteryear, her latest novel, The Female Persuasion, will be out on April 3rd. And she's the guest editor for the 2017 version of Best American Short Stories. So excited. I read that every year. But let's step back into the past for now, and I will recount the 3 backlist novels that I've read of hers this month. And down below, I'll link to my Wolitzer backlist update number 1, which I made last year, where I read The Position, The Uncoupling, and The 10-Year Nap. The first book I want to talk about is The Wife, published in 2003. The Wife chronicles the failing marriage between Joan and Joe Castleman. On an airplane ride to Helsinki, where Joe is about to be awarded a Nobel-type prize for his fiction, Joan finally decides to leave him. We chronicle those few days in Helsinki as the older couple prepares for the awards show and all of the festivities around it. But we also go back into the past where Joan recounts her relationship from the beginning. She was an undergraduate in his creative writing class, and he was a young married professor. And she was a promising writer at the time, and he hadn't been discovered yet. But scandal ensues when they're found out, and they are forced to flee the university. Then shortly after their own marriage, Joe is able to write his first novel based on the experience of their life together, and then he becomes famous. One of the things I like most about this novel is that Joan can cast a skeptical female eye on the exclusive boys' club of the male-centric mid-century American authors and their sense of self-importance. I also like how she sounded different throughout the years recounting her life, how she was vain and foolish in the beginning, then increasingly, if privately, jaded by her husband's ego and infidelities. She also touches on how their 3 growing children fit into their lives. Their 2 daughters, who are loving and successful, and then their son, who is not. I also appreciate how Wolitzer touched on the anti-Semitism that Joe experienced, especially as a young unknown man. It didn't erase his flaws as a character, but it provided a broader picture of his social upbringing and the world that he grew up in. Overall, I enjoyed this novel and the criticism that it bore down on these social and literary times. But then a sudden plot twist at the end took the book down a notch for me. I would have preferred something a little more subtle and complicated. Anywho, the second book I want to talk about is Surrender Dorothy, which was published in 1999. It chronicles a summer when a group of friends and then a mother have to deal with the sudden death of a member of their little tribe. This was my favorite novel of the 3, in large part because of how it probed the issue of identity. Who got to own Sarah, the dead girl's identity? We flit around to her mom and her friends, and an acquaintance who barely knew her but is staying in the beach house where she and her friends stayed every summer for several years. Sarah plays a supporting role in all of their stories as they decide who they are within their careers and friendships and loves. It's a very self-centered but honest approach to relationships, I think. I mean, how can you not help being the center of your own story? In the one chapter we get before Sarah dies, we also see how she's wrapped up in her tenuous future career and managing her love life and grappling with other relationships to her own specifications. So in this beach house, there's Adam, Sarah's best friend and a breakout playwright who seems to enjoy her company more than the company of the men that he's sleeping with. Then there's Sean, Adam's new boyfriend, who barely knew Sarah and in large part is trying to leech off of Adam's fame. The new mother, Maddie, who knew Sarah since summer camp and has this long-term, since teenagehood, relationship based half on admiration and half on jealousy. Then Peter, Maddie's husband, who knew Sarah since college and has some secrets of his own. Finally, Sarah's mother, Natalie, plus a handful of side characters. Natalie and Sarah almost have a girlfriend relationship, as Natalie, like her young daughter, is single and dating a lot. Plus, she's very encouraging about total sexual openness, so Sarah ends up sharing a lot about her private life with her mother, much to the later surprise of her friends. With the beach house experience, Sarah's actually looking for a little distance from her mother, but after she dies, Natalie wants to come there to gatecrash the beach house and live the type of life that Sarah lived there every summer and get some closure. It's not a trite little story with easy conclusions, and nor is it too depressing. It lingers on the comic nostalgia of life and death as well as pain. The individual relationships that we see crop out throughout the story, particularly between Natalie and her new younger compatriots, gives this novel a unique dimension in exploring just what the hell this crazy life means. I absolutely fell in love with this book, down to the inside joke that is the title, and I wholeheartedly recommend it. And finally, we have the third book, Friends for Life, which was published in 1994. We follow three 20-something friends as they go through changes in sexuality and career, and they briefly fall apart. This was my least favorite of the three books. It was charming, but it didn't really take me any deeper like the other two did. I mean, it does make me wonder about the social norms of young adults in the late 80s and early 90s. One of the girls, Anne, comes out as a lesbian when it's not nearly so accepted in mainstream. There's a lot of focus on the AIDS virus, and also this tacit understanding that romance tends to equal the end of platonic relationships, even if you've been friends with these people for years. Meredith, Lisa, and Anne try to counteract that assertion even when one of them makes decisions in her life that baffles the other two. Meredith is beautiful and a little vain, and she sleeps with inappropriate men as she tries to make a name for herself in public television. Editorial assistant Anne is loud and opinionated and a little culturally Jewish, or maybe stereotypically Jewish. She enters into a lesbian relationship and the popular LGBTQ politics of the day. Lisa is a doctor who marries a bit of a boorish colleague, and she's also the nice girl glue who holds the three friends together. It's short and a little jumpy from chapter to chapter. It definitely felt more like a light read, even if the characters were engaging. But it didn't probe anything like the meaning of one-sided authorial fame within a long marriage, or the meaning of a dead girl's identity amongst all the people who loved her, or knew her. But for what it wasn't a shallow depiction. Wolitzer provides an intriguing and more complicated look than many into the lives of young women. That about covers it for me. You can find links to my written reviews for these books down below. I'll be back, probably in 2013, for my third Wolitzer Backlist update, and of course to talk about her new frontlist titles. So thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.